I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Tuesday, December the 9th, 2014. Two Palestinians were arrested in the West Bank today on suspicion of planning to carry out a terror attack outside the Jewish settlement of Tekoa. As you may have seen on IBA News, the IDF had been searching for the two for several days after receiving information that they were missing from their homes and may be planning to carry out an attack against Israelis. The men were identified as 34-year-old Muhammad Abu Aisha, reportedly a nephew of Ammar Abu Aisha, one of the men who kidnapped and murdered three Israeli teenagers, Gilad Sher, Eyal Yifrach, and Naftali Frankel this past June. The second man was identified as 17-year-old Jabrin Muntaz, both from the area of Hebron. One of them was found to be in possession of a knife. An Israeli yeshiva student was stabbed late last night at the international headquarters of Chabad in New York. 22-year-old Levi Rosenblatt is a rabbinical student visiting from Israel. He was inside the Chabad headquarters, which include a synagogue and study hall in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, when a man described as African-American and possibly homeless entered the building just before 2 a.m. asking for a book. The man then left and came back later, taking out a switchblade and stabbing Rosenblatt in the upper body. Rosenblatt was treated at the scene by local Hatzalah members and taken to the hospital, where he was said to be in stable condition. Police who were called to the scene confronted the attacker, identified by the New York Daily News as 49-year-old Calvin Peters, who refused to put down his weapon and was shot by officers after charging at them with the weapon. Peters later died of his wounds. While the Daily News reports that one witness claims Peters was yelling anti-Jewish remarks at the time of the incident, it is not clear whether the attack was a hate crime. Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism John Miller said the NYPD believes this was an isolated incident and said Peters had a history of being emotionally disturbed and was known to police. The Jerusalem Post reports that Israeli authorities have indicted an American fugitive suspected of planning to carry out terror attacks against holy Muslim sites. Adam Everett Livix, a native of Texas, is wanted in the U.S. for questioning on drug-related charges. He was apprehended by Israeli police last month. Livix reportedly entered Israel last year and was living in Palestinian-controlled cities in the West Bank. While there, he had allegedly acquired weapons to carry out terror attacks against Islamic holy sites in Israel. While searching his home, investigators found ammunition and gun parts stolen from the IDF. Livix was indicted for illegal possession of arms and for being an undocumented alien. During questioning, Livix told Israeli police that he had committed several fraud-related crimes and had made initial plans for terror attacks against Islamic holy sites in the country. The Israeli investigation of Livix is being conducted in coordination with the FBI. Israel's foreign ministry strongly criticized a report by Amnesty International which accuses Israel of war crimes during the conflict with Gaza this past summer. Last night, the organization called for several charges of war crimes to be investigated, saying Israel's actions in Gaza were in breach of international law. Israel's ministry said the report chooses to focus on monetary losses to Palestinian civilians rather than investigate the systematic and deliberate firing of rockets and mortars at Israel's civilian population by an internationally recognized jihadist terror group. Also citing that the report contradicts itself, noting that the IDF took unprecedented measures to avoid civilian casualties, but also alleging that Israel intentionally targeted civilians. The Foreign Ministry did commend Amnesty for saying that it intends to report on Hamas violations, but noted that there were no current investigations in that regard. A court in Germany threw out a case today against a former Nazi for lack of evidence. The Times of Israel reports that the 89-year-old man known as Werner Sea, due to Germany privacy laws, was accused of being involved in the largest civilian massacre in Nazi-occupied France, the 1944 slaughter of 642 men, women, and children in the village of Oradour-sur-Glane. Werner Sea claims he was at the village at the time of the massacre but did not take part in any killing. An Israeli company's minute version of the New Testament has been nominated for the Guinness Book of Records as the world's smallest Bible. Reuters reports that Jerusalem Nano Bible Company developed the tiny chip, which contains the original Greek version of the New Testament, which can be embedded inside watches and jewelry. The company plans to produce a nano-sized Old Testament as well. And turning now to our programming for tonight, Tuesday, December the 9th. Coming up at 9 o'clock on L'Chaim, Mark Golub sits down with Itamar Marcus, an Israeli political activist, researcher, and the founder and director of Palestinian Media Watch, which studies Palestinian society by monitoring and analyzing the Palestinian Authority through its media and school books. That's tonight on JBS and jbstv.org. And that's the JBS News Update for Tuesday, December the 9th, 2014. I'm Teisha Bader.